All right, let's settle in and get started here. Um, so this is a stakeholder meeting for the standard offer. Um, so we're going to be talking about quite a few things here, and we've got a pretty tight agenda. We'll be starting off with an overview, go over some progress that we've made. We're going to have a presentation from Sam McClendon about the IRA and potential ways to leverage that. And then we'll have some discussion and we'll talk about some next steps. So this might be a review for some of you, but probably new to some of you as well. So Austin Energy has a community solar program. It's been in place since 2018. And we have 3 projects: La Loma for 2.6 megawatts, ABIA at the airport for 1.5 megawatts, and Palmer Event Center for 185 kilowatts. These 3 projects go to make the community solar portfolio, and half of that portfolio production is set aside for low-income customers who participate slightly different than market rate customers. So you'll hear me say those 2 terms. Market rate customers start off paying a premium, and low-income customers never pay. And it can potentially lead to bill savings, as I'll demonstrate here in a second. If you're a participant in the community solar program, then you're getting 100% of your consumption greened up through the program. And what happens then is the community solar adjustment replaces the power supply adjustment on the bill. And the community solar adjustment is locked in for 15 years. So currently, or I should say in 2018, customers signed up and market rate customers paid $0.015 premium, and the low-income customers did not pay. Now, because the PSA has went up, market rate customers are saving 1/10 of a penny, and community solar customers are saving 1.6 cents per kilowatt hour. No, it was built before the program, and so we didn't want to just include that. Plus, it was a much higher price project than these projects here. Yep. But back then, the economies of scale were not quite as great as they are now. So we are trying to keep our portfolio managed in our program from having to receive funding from non-program participants. So that's one of our objectives, is to ensure that we have a responsible portfolio that we can scale. And the way that we can do that is by keeping the price in check. And as long as we can do that, we can continue to scale this program. Okay. So I guess I just covered the first bullet there. One of our goals is to expand the capacity. And as the last RFP and the one before that we put out for community solar did not result in projects, they just came back too high, or either that or they weren't well vetted and viable. So we're looking for projects. We're looking to put out a price signal so that contractors know what we're aiming for, and to try to identify viable projects. And then, yeah, so, and sorry about the cross-subsidization language on here. That was not intended or written by me. But what we like to say is that, currently the program is, there is some cost shifting going to non-participants in the program. And so we would like to keep all of the costs of this program within the program. And So we're trying to incentivize commercial hosting. We see that there's a lot of commercial buildings out there that do not have solar on them that potentially could. There is a pretty significant issue in the Austin market, or really in all markets, where you have what they call a split incentive. So the tenants of a building are paying the electric bill and they don't own the building. So they don't have a lot of incentive to build a solar project, and the building owners don't have any incentive to build a solar project, because if they did, it would be behind the meter and the tenants would get the benefits. It's been argued that a building owner could just increase their rent, but then they become less competitive in the rental market. So we just don't see any solar development happening on those kinds of buildings, and they're everywhere. We're talking about strip malls and office buildings, things like that. So the standard offer helps to address that challenge by providing that benefit directly to the system owner, who could be the customer, but could also be a third party who is leasing or in some kind of a roof hosting agreement with the owner of the system. And so by paying that owner directly, we are opening a new market for solar in Austin. This could also pertain to things like warehouses, for example, where the load is small. The customer would never invest enough solar to cover their roof because they could only leverage a small fraction of that for their load. So parking lots, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of applications here, and some of them require more infrastructure upgrade than others, like even a warehouse. If you think about the size of a transformer, we're sizing transformers to serve the load. And if a warehouse has a really small load, it may have a huge roof, but a small load because there's no air conditioning or whatever. Then if you want to utilize that whole roof, you might need to upgrade that transformer to make that possible. It can be both. It really depends on the size of the buildings and what their load is. There are some buildings that may require more than one transformer. So it really depends on the load. So these systems, the standard offer format, would be interconnected to the utility side of the meter. So it's not defraying the customer's bill. And then we're paying that payment directly to the system. So what the standard offer does is the utility would publish a price that is our standard offer, and developers would develop a project according to the standard offer project criteria that we'll end up talking about in future stakeholder meetings. And then hopefully they're leveraging the economies of scale. There's IRA benefits that we're also going to talk about, how we'll ultimately want to leverage as much of the IRA benefits, which are tax credits, as possible. And then the systems get built, and we would pay for that energy for a period of years at a set price. That's the original design structure of a standard offer. So just to compare the standard offer to the value of solar, one of the big differences of the standard offer is that it's on the utility side of the meter, while the value of solar would be on the customer side of the meter. And the standard offer price would be locked in for a period of years. 20 is here as a proxy, but we haven't determined if that's the number of years. And the value of solar can change once every 3 years. So we'll talk more about that in a minute too. So some of the potential benefits are the rapid expansion of community solar. There's no need for an RFP or contract negotiations because we would work to develop a standardized contract that works for everybody. So that takes a lot of time and cost out of the whole process. And as I mentioned, it could potentially solve the split incentive problem. It promotes economic development, workforce development, leverages the incentives to the amount possible. It helps AE to achieve and Austin in general to achieve solar goals and increase educational opportunities around town. Also, it's an innovative, replicable model, hopefully. So we want to prove that out. And if possible, maybe other utilities could adopt something similar. Certainly. We don't have this currently, but we do have schools that have solar on them. And in fact, I think AISD is the school district with the most solar in the state of Texas, and it's pretty close to the most in the US. I think there's one other, maybe two other ISDs that have more. It's out there. Yeah, you can look it up. And that said, it's my understanding that they also have more bond money that they're looking for solar projects on. Okay. If you're online, can you mute your mic, please? So we formed the planning team. We're having internal discussions about these things. We are we're still in the planning stage. We're getting to the needs assessment and the program mission goals and objectives. Like those are things that we're talking about currently. And then beyond that, we'll start to develop the guidelines, intake process, tracking, the contract itself, the evaluation plan, staffing plan, budget plan, all these other things come later. So we're still in this early stage. So one of the reasons we're here at the stakeholder meeting is to help get input from y'all to inform these requirements. We are continuing our conversations with finance and energy and market and operations to work on our pricing strategy. This is something that is, it's taken a while, and we need some input from y'all to get to our determinations on that. So we'll have some more discussion on that tonight. We've initiated discussions with distribution pertaining the interconnection and host capacity, et cetera, and the standard offer contract discussions with legal. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sam, and he's going to present on IRA.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. I'm Sam. We've gotten more and more questions about the IRA and how that might play into the standard offer. So I was hoping to provide some foundational knowledge about the IRA and how it might pertain to what we're trying to do here. This is going to be a quick foundation. I know some of you have a lot more IRA knowledge, some of you have zero. So this is hopefully just going to be a middle ground to help everyone on an even playing field here. So the contents here, first a disclaimer that I'm not a tax professional. I don't think we have any tax professionals here. This is for educational purposes only, and I, for one, am still learning about this. This was enacted in August of last year, signed into law, and it was only last month that the IRS came out with guidance around these energy tax credits. So it's very, very recent that we have any inkling of how this might be implemented in the long run. So we're going to go over the basic IRA, an overview of the energy tax credits incentives, labor requirements, domestic content, some bonuses, other items, and application. The overall IRA, HR 5376, signed into law last August, as I mentioned. It's about 270 pages, which isn't bad for legislation of this size. It gets messy, however, because nearly everything in it is relates to previous law. So you're constantly going back and forth. It's kind of like reading Infinite Jest with all the footnotes. You're just constantly flipping back and forth. So a summary is presented here. It's about $386 billion in incentives related to climate and energy policy. There's also a lot about Medicare and various implements of tax reforms. The clean energy portion of the IRA has the set goals of the 4 bullet points above, providing targeted incentives, encouraging clean energy projects, developers to meet strong labor standards, to lower the cost of energy-saving property improvements, and to allow nonprofits to receive tax credits as payments, which we'll mention later. So the IRA is basically extending 2 sections of the Internal Revenue Code, and it's going to add 2 more sections to that. This is the best graph I could find that kind of details the incentives over time. If you find this online, or I'm sure we'll give this presentation out afterwards, this is a great graph to reference regarding the possible incentives for you. So solar systems constructed 2023 to 2033 may have domestic content and low income adders. That's going to raise that investment tax credit in Austin Energy territory to up to about 60%. That's what we're finding right now. This is a little bit comparing the production tax credit to investment tax credit. Right now, we are thinking that most, if not all, of the standard offer projects are going to take advantage of the investment tax credit, just because it's good for projects up to 5 megawatts AC, and those projects that qualify for those bonus tax credits. However, I wanted to include the production tax credit here just to limit the confusion. So it's kind of a good comparison about where projects can fall. There's one slide here over the production tax credit. The one thing I want to mention, if you go over the production tax credit, the production tax credit is for projects looking out over 10 years, and those incentives increase with inflation. So you got to keep on the ball about what those prices and incentives are year after year. You can see a couple of the numbers I manually adjusted already because these graphs were from last year and they've already changed. Alternate current? Alternate current, yeah, direct current, yeah. They use both in the IRA, so kind of got to define what that is. Sure, totally understand. So this is what most people, like I said, will probably take advantage of. This chart kind of blows up the previous one, and the highlighted sections are what we are going to dive into today. You can see the 30% base credit, then you get a 10% adder for the domestic content bonus, and either a 10 or 20% adder on top of that for a low income bonus. So the first thing that talk about is the labor requirements. These are very strongly thought of in the IRA. So the base credit here is 6%, and if labor requirements are met, this jumps to 30%. So these are most likely, you're going to want to abide by these labor requirements going forward because it raises those credits up significantly. And these are for projects 1 to 5 megawatts AC that began construction after January 29th of this year. There are 3 parts to the labor requirements: wages, apprenticeships, and record keeping. Wages are pretty standard. It elaborates on the Davis-Bacon Act, and it clarifies that the Secretary of Labor publishes the prevailing wage determinations, and there's links here to those prevailing wage determinations based on Travis and Williamson County. Apprenticeships, like I said, there's still a couple pieces of the IRA that we are still looking into and trying to clarify definitions. One of those has to do with apprenticeships. in that ratio of apprentices to journey workers. In Austin, that ratio is 1 to 5. However, the IRA only mentions federal and state requirements. To my knowledge, Texas doesn't have a state requirement, and the federal requirement is something along the lines of apprentices have to be registered in a registered program. That program has to mention a certain ratio, be approved by the Department of Labor. So we're still looking into some clarification on those ratios. And then the record keeping piece is just to make sure that the first two, wages and apprenticeships, are being met. The domestic content bonus adds another 10% to your investment tax credit. Through this, all structural steel and iron products have to be produced in the US, and a required percentage of the total cost of manufactured products have to be mined, produced, or manufactured in the US as well. And that percentage jumps up over time. There's a lot of different calculators over time on the internet, and different ways to calculate the different percentages of the products that you're using. But to meet this, you will have to documentate all of your materials that you use for a project and submit those along with your tax credits application. Gesundheit.
Oh, thank you.
Energy community bonuses. I just want to throw it in here to limit confusion as well. To my knowledge, there is no energy community bonus tracks within the city of Austin, Austin Energy Territory. You can see a little bit out west and out east, but for us, this probably will not apply. Low income bonuses. The IRA is going to allocate right now 1.8 gigawatt DCs worth of projects in 23 and 24. You can see those allocations down at the chart here. This will probably be the same allocation for 2024 as well. But depending on the submissions for different types of projects, we expect them to raise or lower these allotments over time. So you get a 10% investment tax credit adder for being in a low income community. That's category 1. Category 2 doesn't apply to us, as you'll see. A 20% investment tax credit adder will be added for residential building projects and low income economic benefit projects. That's categories 3 and 4. So we'll try to aim for categories 3 and 4 where we can. If that doesn't work out, then we always have category 1 to fall back on. Category 1, first off, you can see on this map, there's lots of tracks around Austin, north, south, and east for these low income communities. There's links to the ArcGIS map here as well. This program is going to focus on front of the meter facilities. So you can see letter B here, it's 210 megawatts reserved for the front of meter facilities. So that's what we're aiming for. Category 2 is located on Indian land. There's just a few spots of Indian land in Texas, south, east, and west, and nothing around our territory. Category 3, qualified low-income residential building projects. These are residential building projects that are part of affordable housing programs. These include HUD programs, Section 8, USDA, VA programs, etc. We are still looking into clarifying the highlighted portion here, saying that the financial benefits of the electricity produced by the facility are allocated equitably among the residents of the building. However, we would also push for incentives in projects to go into the Solar for All program that we're also developing there. So a couple possible programs on the home front there related to low-income residential building projects. Category 4 is economic benefit projects. Again, we're looking into the highlighted portions to make sure we meet all the criteria for the IRA here. But these are projects in which half of the financial benefits of the electricity produced go to qualified low-income households at a 20% bill discount rate. We want to make sure we can hit that 20% threshold. There's also a requirement here that the IRS requires supporting documentation, including some documentation with personal identifiable information. And the owner of the system has to give this to the IRS. So we want to make sure we meet all those privacy requirements for that documentation. At the bottom here, you can see the Section 8 income guidelines around the Austin Round Rock area. I thought that was just interesting. Our CAP program, customer assistance program, always already takes those income levels into effect. So we should meet the 50% financial benefits to low-income households automatically through that CAP program. Other items of note, we have direct pay, aka elective pay, and that allows non-taxable entities, nonprofits, churches, states, counties, municipalities, school districts to directly monetize tax credits. That is, they get paid up front, which is very, very nice. There's some bullet points and some caveats for that about tax exempt bonds, et cetera, in here. I just wanted to throw it out there so you were in the know. The other item of note is credit transfer, which allows eligible taxpayers to transfer credits to unrelated taxpayers. So if you have smaller entities or those without sufficient tax liability to reap the benefits of IRA credits, one can transfer those IRS tax credits to a third party, anyone, in exchange for cash. The last slide here, application. The applicant portal is forthcoming. There are no set dates or links to this application portal. There is, however, one portion of the IRA that is currently being enacted for manufacturing facilities and tax credits. So there is a link in the notes of this slide. You can kind of see what that portal might look like. But there are no strict guidelines yet about what documentation is needed and what that documentation entails yet. So once we get that, Austin Energy will gladly work with contractors moving forward to meet one of those low-income bonus categories to see if we can provide you documentation so you meet that criteria and get those adders. So other bonus points here, bullet points regarding application. Projects have to be completed within 4 years after receipt of allocation and cannot be placed in service prior to receiving that allocation. So again, we'll know more once that applicant portal goes online. Again, we don't know the dates or anything like that. So once that opens up, there's 60 days of an application period, after which there's a rolling application application process to allot project to certain categories. Someone last time asked about county tax abatements. I just wanted to throw in a slide here about Travis and Williamson County tax abatements. It doesn't really apply to this program as much because the owner of the property has to be the owner of the system as well. But just wanted to include it here. If you have lease systems, also the appraisal districts of those counties want to know that you have a solar system that's being leased on your property, so they don't include it in your taxes. I have some extra resources here because it's very hard to find the full text of certain bills and searchable links to it. Cornell Law School has a great database that takes you through the code, and it's very searchable if you're looking for the law itself. And there's also a couple summaries here that were put together as well by the government so you can see what's going on. So anyway, that's foundation material on the IRA. Thank you. I will certainly try. It's a lot of information. What's going on? I know ABIA is certainly expanding rapidly. There's plans in the works to do so much to the airport right now. Everything from moving runways and terminals to knocking down parking garages, putting up new ones with solar. So there's so much in the works right now for ABIA.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
Yes, yes.
that's fine. No, that, that's yeah, we know what happens when we press that button. It goes into echo mode.
Can anybody hear us on the call? Oh, good. Val says
Yes.
good.
I don't know what we did.
I don't know what we did.
And we're back. Thank you for your patience as we move through all of the audio possibilities possible. Okay, here we go. So we're talking about the balance of the portfolio and the participation in the community solar program. So on one side, you have the costs, which include the portfolio costs and the discounts to low-income customers. On the other side of the scale, you have the benefits. So you have the market rate customer contributions, and you have the avoided costs to Austin Energy for the energy that's produced. So, for example, when you're producing an electron or let's say a kilowatt hour of energy, then that's a kilowatt hour of energy that you don't have to buy off of the ERCOT market. And so that's just one example of an avoided cost. There's also transmission avoided costs that are associated with that, as well as other things. So we have the avoided costs. And then if you know about the value of solar, the value of solar is made up of all of those avoided costs, as well as a component that we call the societal benefits. And the societal benefits is calculated by looking at the ERCOT mix, because it's important to realize that all of the energy that is consumed in our service territory that isn't produced in our service territory is pulled from the ERCOT mix. Okay. So an electron produced in, or a unit of power, kilowatt hour, produced in our service territory avoids that, that ERCOT mix, right? So we look at the carbon mix of the ERCOT generation, and as they green up, that carbon mix will become less and less. So we look at that mix, and then we look at the societal cost of carbon, which is pegged to a federal report, which looks at all of the impacts of carbon on society due to global warming and the impacts of global warming, et cetera. Okay, so that goes, you know, from food supply to job markets and everything else. There's a lot of things that are baked into that. And so when we run that analysis, that cost is 2.3 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's what that methodology indicates is the cost to society for the generation that we pull off of the ERCOT market in terms of carbon impacts. Okay. So now you kind of got that. So in order to balance this scale, you know, we need to, A, determine is that societal cost part of this equation that's included in that scale or not? So that's one thing I'd like to talk about. And then, well, actually, let's just stop there and see if we have some input. And also, by the way, we're also going to send a survey out after this meeting so that we can get some real quantitative data from y'all. But just kind of a show of hands and maybe some discussion in the room and online. Who thinks that we should be including the societal cost of carbon in this equation? Yeah, I kind of figured that would be the case. And does anyone want to speak to their rationale on that, just so we can get that documented? I think I can do that. How do I stop sharing? So I think I heard your case. Pardon? Yeah, to be consistent with the value of solar. This is not fundamentally different because it's still solar energy on the distribution grid. This is a value that council has recognized. And was there another point? I think, and it's fundamentally the same. So So this is a customer benefit program, just like the other one is. It's another similarity. Mm-hmm. Okay. Dale? Right. Okay. Oh, I lost it. Yeah, can you help with the handout mics? Yeah. So I think I did repeat most of Kaiba's concerns, and Dale mentioned that, the societal benefits that are reflected in that number are enjoyed by all. So we should be striving for more and more renewable energy that provides those societal benefits. Did I sum that up right? Yeah, why don't you go ahead and yeah.
Yeah, I think that the societal benefit, anytime we use renewable energy, we're cleaning the air, improving the health of our community. And if we can run the coal plant less, the lesser we run it, the healthier it is for everybody in the Central Texas. So it's
Yeah.
a huge community benefit and societal benefit.
Thank you. Are there any other comments online? Okay, thanks for the feedback on that. So another thing that we're looking at is in terms of the agreement between the developer and a potential site host. How involved should Austin Energy be in that arrangement? I can see that, like, what I think is a baseline would be that we would have some sort of agreement form with the customer and between the customer and Austin Energy, so that Austin Energy can acknowledge or get acknowledgement from the customer that they understand that, for example, the system that was installed is not going to reduce their energy bills, because Austin Energy is going to be purchasing all that power directly. But, like, what other things do you think Austin Energy could inform the customer for consumer protection purposes? And if we were to go a step further and try to develop some kind of standard lease or roof lease agreement, would you guys advise that, or do you think that that should be left between the contractor and the host? Does anyone have any input on that?
People, but nobody's raising their hand.
Hey, Valerie, can you check to see if we can hear you?
Hi. Hey, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Anyway, to me, the problem with Austin Energy is they're not out promoting this stuff. For example, every time I go to a restaurant, I look at the light fixtures, and I asked to speak to the manager. I said, "Do you know Austin Energy will pay 80% of the cost to retrofit your And not a one has ever said they ever heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a satellite or a drone that can fly over some warehouses or something that are near a transmission place or something, if you'll give me the list of the addresses, I'll go by and talk to the people there.
Mm-hmm.
Which evidently you don't have the staff to do that, but I would be willing to do some little bit of part like that just to let them know, because I've had restaurants contact Austin Energy and change their light fixtures because they knew about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we need to be careful or be really promoting this. But in terms of the agreement, to inform customers and the hosting agreement that is between the customers and the developers, where's Austin Energy's position there for consumer protection? That would be our purview, right? Is just
So that's what makes me think about the role of the utility as the fairer arbitrator of all costs.
mhm.
And if the fairer arbitrator of all costs, which the utility could do as a win-win, then you don't run the risk of people gouging profits from unscrupulous means. So I don't know quite how you design that, but presuming the utility is out for a win-win
Mhm.
and out to look out for the customer, and then that kind of outlook could be standardized, then you can have a fairest doctrine where everybody wins.
So the utility would be regulating the hosting agreement benefit to the host?
Well, I don't quite know how it breaks down in terms of how the fairest doctrine works,
Mhm.
except that the customer is always perceived of as receiving the best possible benefit. And the utility looks out for the customer as
Yeah.
as the independent arbitrator of what the costs are going to be. And you don't have people, different places charging different things, and some people being unhappy and other people being, so you have a role as the fairest arbitrator of how things could be honest and fair for everybody. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we're all trying to think of it as well. Typically the utility doesn't like to get too involved in financial transactions between our customers and someone other than the utility, right? But yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's a balance. And Alba, what's your take on this, David?
I think it'd be helpful to have an example lease would be helpful, and certainly sounds like it's worth Austin Energy having some sort of disclosure that's included as part of the PPA to make sure. What you get into is the entities that are going to end up owning and selling PPA, even though it could be owned by the same host or whatever involved. They're going to be many times separate entities, and any lawyer is going to get a hold of any lease and try to make their money worth. So there always be changes, but to have an example would be great. Any type of disclosure or market-based information would be helpful, but it'd be helpful to kind of get an idea. I think that's going to be some of the, you have issues like if you're going to be on a host roof, right? What happens when you have to get the roof replaced, or what if there's damage? Is it from the solar? Is it from another wind event? If you have a leak, what is it, right? So we do a lot of these, and you don't get as much here in Austin, but you still have people concerned about wind loads and snow loads. And so there's a lot to be worked through on that. And so I think there'll be a lot of different ways people address that in their agreements with the host. Like I said, I think you'll see some instances that I know we're working on that the host will be part of the entity that owns the project, but there will still be a separate host because the host owns a building, another entity that they may owns the power project. So it's going to be interesting, but it would be helpful to have Austin Energy's viewpoint on that.
Okay.
I think on the issue of having a set rate, I think the downside of that is that it might, might eliminate some mutually beneficial options that a solar developer and a customer could work out. And I think that might be especially, well, I think it could be true on the commercial side and the residential. I'm not sure where Austin Energy is landing on this, but I know we previously discussed the possibility of allowing for these systems, if paired with a battery, to be used for backup power, even though they're on the utility side of the meter. And I think if that is possible, then I could imagine a situation where like somebody gets a battery and like maybe that's their payment, and that might be what they want more than, whatever cents per kilowatt hour or something. And I think on the commercial side, I could imagine, a situation where maybe part of the rooftop is used for, on site behind the meter, and part of it is part of this program. So, I don't know. I think there's maybe situations where a set rate isn't the best, but maybe it would be helpful to, at least on the residential side of things. I'm not so worried about commercial customers because I think they're more sophisticated, but on the residential side, like set some suggested minimum, and then, but it is just suggested, but so that at least the customer can, kind of see that and be informed of like what might be reasonable.
Okay. So just to sum that up, well, first of all, before I go there, is there any input from, oh, sorry.
Just real quick. It seems to me like a lot of customers who are going to be the host
Mm-hmm.
are not informed about these issues just in general. They've just got a roof or someplace you can put it. So they don't have information that a lot of people in this room have, that all the different things that can happen, all the different ways to think about it. And I think Austin Energy could play a really strong role in informing people, just transparently informing people about the issues, not advising them, but having some kind of informational conveyance to people that are considering this type of arrangement with somebody, because you can't think of all the different things that you want to ask or all the different I's you want to dot and T's to cross until you've waded into it.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, you were like, oh my gosh, why
wish I
didn't
would've thought
someone
of that.
tell me whatever?
Yeah.
So if Austin Energy could play a role in helping people understand the process that they're entering into, it would be, I think it'd be remarkably helpful. That I think Austin Energy could really do without advising them,
Mhm.
not telling them what to do.
Yeah. I like that.
I
We
just
have-
Googled utilities that have commercial rooftop solar agreements, and pages came up. Evidently, there's utilities that have gone through what we're talking about. Maybe we could contact some of them and see what kind of agreements they've had with those people.
Yeah, I think you're probably getting, that's probably a broad search that's coming up with less specific information. But
I don't know. It's not my field. I'm
Yeah.
just throwing out ideas.
Micah?
Maybe online. I think there's a couple questions, and I'll give it. You guys are welcome to unmute yourselves. I think Chris and Claire had some questions.
Chris, you want to come off mute and ask your question? Or Claire? Did they put their question in the chat?
Chris
Thank
had some discussion. Oh, go ahead, Claire.
Hi. I didn't have much of a question. I actually wanted to agree with the previous woman who was talking, or who was making her point. I think she had a really good point to take into consideration, because it is a very good fact that there is a lot of material or a lot of information out there that would probably be more useful, especially seeing that it's by Austin Energy, especially because even as a solar aspect, you can only advise so much information when you're from the actual company, like when you represent an actual solar installation company versus Austin Energy. You could take advantage of a lot of like accurate situations that currently exist for homeowners that you receive, and accurate information within your marketing material to help solar installation companies and different companies be able to advise homeowners on this with the security that it's backed up by Austin Energy. So I just thought that was a really good point to make.
Thank you.
Just brought up a couple questions about, I think David addressed it as well. You know, what happens if there's a roof leak? And so I think he was using that as an example of why it would be good to have some disclosure or some kind of involvement in the hosting agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we have another. Oh, Chris, are you ready to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was just making a couple statements. I've been studying this a little bit, but I feel like you guys are way beyond me on this program. But I am not a fan of. We do a lot of service work and repair work on solar systems, solar power. Um, I'm thinking that's you're going to have a big issue if you're leasing roofs, and then, or putting solar that's not owned by that building on roofs. I'm thinking for repairability, serviceability. If the roof, you need a new roof. There's all kinds of reasons. I'm thinking that it'd be better to do like ground mount systems if possible. And I've always brought this up. It'd be nice if you could get regular installers to do these systems. And it's not a huge bid package, maybe a smaller bid package for like a lottery type thing where everybody has a chance to bid on it type thing, like a smaller 20 kW, build that infrastructure that you could add to possibly. And just throwing that out there. I don't know. I know you guys have this whole idea and want to downplay that, I guess.
Okay.
So following up on the idea that this young lady had over here, I mean, depending upon how wide the utility wants to get involved in this, there are as we've heard tonight, there are so many different questions about this, that, and the other thing. Maybe a handbook comes out of this, that covers a lot of these different questions from an objective point of view. You're not providing counsel, but you're providing information about all these kinds of things. And maybe there's an ombudsman type kind of person at Austin Energy who can answer questions that people have. Mm-hmm. And that way you cut off you shortstop the problems, some of the problems that are going to happen down the line. Once people get confused about something, then they multiply it. But if you can get to those things early, then you cut down your costs of difficulties.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
I'll just add a +1 on the point about issues with the roof. I do think that might be another good thing to standardize, is to make sure that the developer takes responsibility for any problems caused by the installation to the structure.
Yeah, I agree that at minimum, the customer and the developer need to come to terms on what to do in different situations. I think you're going to have, different age roofs out there that already have potential issues. And then you're going to have roofs out there that may have issues due to the solar. I think that Austin Energy needs to be really careful about how involved in that we get. And so that's, I think the idea of us putting out information and giving people channels to information is a great idea. And then, but when it comes down to the fine points of negotiation of the contract between the installer and the host, I think we would probably want to position ourselves outside of that agreement, with some oversight, just to ensure that we're doing the consumer protection that we need to do. But we do have to be careful about opening ourselves up to liability. I sure could use help figuring out how to share this again. I'm struggling up here. So another thing I wanted to talk about, and just, well, I guess we could close that out to say, first of all, is there any more comments around that, the hosting agreement? Hearing none. Oh, we're getting there. Here we go. Okay, thanks. So, worksite agreement. So Austin Energy has agreed to worksite agreements for all of our RFPs for any kind of renewable energy projects. So these agreements ensure that the laborers on site have certain accommodations and the ability to engage in different things. It's really a protection for the workers on site. And I've listed these out here and you can read through them at your leisure. But I just wanted to introduce the idea of worksite agreements in this program. And as we're, trying to hit those targets of the IRA, I think we also want to hit these targets as well, which are pretty much in alignment with that. So we'll be coming back and talking more about the worksite agreement potential for this program, but I just wanted to introduce it here. And again, I'm not going to read through this all, and I don't think we need to have a lot of discussion about this right now, but we'll certainly entertain some.
This is for like utility scale projects that Austin Energy contracts for. This is.
Yes, we're including these in our renewable energy RFPs as we move forward. But I also think that it's pertinent here and would like to, discuss as part of this program, ensuring that some of these accommodations are afforded to the workers on these sites. Yeah,
I mean,
only 1 15-minute break every 4 hours.
Letter C
No,
feels
just kidding.
anti-worker. That seems like it's more of a protection for Austin Energy than the worker.
Which one are you talking about?
C.
C. Strikes, lockouts. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I didn't develop these. These were developed by who's it? Who's Bo with? Do you remember? Clean. These were developed by a workforce.
Climate jobs.
Bo Delp, yeah, and his organization. Clean. What is it? Did you just say what it was?
Jobs.
Yeah, climate jobs. So anyway, it's something for us to consider as we move forward, and we'll dig deeper into it.
Isn't there a provision in the IRA for a green force or a energy force or some kind of training force of people being involved in the energy industry? And does that dovetail into apprenticeships and?
Yeah, there's a workforce development component in there. And there's also, wage components as well. There's a lot of worker protection or worker improvements that they're targeting.
But isn't there like a conservation corps, an energy corps type program where people are trained and hired to work in this field? And if so,
I believe that was in the Build Back Better, which is kind of an overarching green framework that came out prior to the IRA. And the IRA is actually the law that was implemented and approved.
So is there a way to dovetail those?
I don't think the Conservation Corps was put into the IRA itself. It was part of the Build Back Better.
But
though.
if it's in the Build Back Better, maybe it can, and it does, and exists, maybe Austin Energy can train people to have a core, or work with a nonprofit to train people to have a core. And then you have standards that you're going to more easily fill than having to have that conversation over and over and over again, because you have a core that's trained to certain standards that you want to see done.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And we're working, and this is a whole different thing, but we're working on another grant. And part of that grant has a substantial carve out for workforce development. So we're in negotiation with labor unions and other workforce development organizations like ACC, for example, to hit those targets. And so all of this is like evolving in the right direction. And so we're pretty excited about the influx of money there and the opportunity to build a renewable energy workforce. So as we're kind of talking about the IRA benefits, I think this is something that we could have some discussion about today as well. So the fundamental question is, does Austin Energy produce a price that leverages the IRA benefits so that we can, when you think about those scales, we can reduce the project cost so that we can increase the benefit to low-income customers, because we're trying to hit that 20% target. And it's a requirement for some of that IRA funding. So we want to think about, you know, that balance. Like, is Austin Energy just producing a price that is the highest price that we're willing to accept, and then all of the IRA benefits flow to the contractor and maybe potentially the host? Or is Austin Energy trying to produce a price that reflects the IRA benefits and then assume that the contractor is going to leverage those benefits, and then we would have that to pass through to low-income customers and to reduce our market rate premium, because we're going to need to have, we want to keep this program fully subscribed, right? And so right now the premium's $0.015, which is kind of high for a green price. And so we might need to lower that to get enough participation to keep that participation in check. So I want to talk about what your all's thoughts are as it pertains to who leverages the IRA benefits and to what extent. And maybe there's a compromise there.
I might be misunderstanding, but I think whether it's a PTC or ITC, can Austin Energy actually benefit from those, or so
the way that Austin Energy could benefit from it is to put out a standard offer price that's lower and assumes that the developer is going to incorporate that benefit into the price that they're able to make it work.
Right. And I think in the end, that PPA price, you know, I think the developer will try to get as many of those IRA credits as he can and hopefully give you the lowest price because of it. And that's what should be the driver. You're going to get the one thing with Austin Energy, you know, you're using your your purchase agreement difference. And so I think the one you have now doesn't have some of the winter storm.
Winter Storm Uri.
Yeah, for what, 15 years, 25 years, something like that.
What are you talking about?
Is that some of those costs in that power purchase agreement, or is that just a fuel adjustment?
The power supply adjustment?
That's what I meant, the power, yeah. Okay, that's just for you're getting on the grid. So, but I'm just trying to think, you're plugging in there and then trying to lock in a 15-year price. In the end, I think you're going to get your lowest price from your developers if you let them get as many of the ITC credits they can. The hard part is, what is that price going to be? I think I was mentioned to you, CPS Energy has their RFP out now for community solar.
Mhm.
They're negotiated PPAs.
Right.
And you're right. It's, that's a hard, what is that price? But I think you'll get your lowest price from your developers if you give them the ITC credits. And just how low is that? That's the part everybody's trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, and so here's kind of like one of the ways that I see it. So there are the different components of the ITC. Do we have that one chart?
Tim, I think there's
That's
a
the
little
same.
confusion about like fundamentally what you're trying to do here, right? Like the developer isn't going to be bidding in different prices. The whole point is to set a standard, right?
Right.
So that there is, be it one price or two price, like there is a price that will apply. So you go into that, there's not a negotiation.
Yeah, and so we're basically saying, here's the price, here are the project criterias. If you bring us a project that meets these criteria, then you get the price. It's not like we're going to evaluate prices and pick winners and losers. It's like, we're going to clear the market at this price for everything that comes in up to a point. And then we're going to step back, reevaluate, maybe put out the same price and do it again.
And so what he's asking is, should there be a lower price if you're installing for, say, a qualifying low-income customer, because you can take that tax credit? Personally, I don't think that is a good option, because I think the whole point of the tax credit, the additional tax credit, is to encourage more installations for those customers. But that's the question you ask.
Yeah, and so, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the kind of the project developers are pretty well suited to monetize that tax credit. So I think it probably makes sense for them to keep doing that. I think it's, as we talk about, it's a little complicated in trying to like do that yourself, or transferability, or some of those other things. So it seems like that'd be your kind of easiest way. And I would say too, in the last year, like a lot of things have changed in terms of like interest rates, like cost of materials. We've seen, cost of panels, cost of ground mount foundations, wire, everything's gone up. So, if you're trying to sort of, do the calculation of, we're seeing an extra 20%, based on last year where we were, pre-IRA, I don't think you're going to see that, 20% translate. It's going to be something less than that. So
That makes sense.
it's a challenging problem. I don't know how you solve that, but yeah, just something to add in.
I'm wondering if there could be some sort of a compromise on some of it too, because I think one of the tax credits specifically, and it is the qualified low-income economic benefit project, which is a 20% tax credit and basically requires an upfront application, if I'm understanding right, where the utility identifies in collaboration with the project owner that this is going to be part of a community solar program that affords these certain benefits to low-income customers for a certain percentage of the project, et cetera. Where, like for that one in particular, do you think it makes sense for us to leverage that part of it for the utility published price? if available, because that's something that would be upfront negotiated. I can't see it, but if you want to come off mute online, you're welcome to speak up.
Yeah, Chris, it's up to you. I can read it for you, or you're welcome to come off mute.
I just wanted to add, I looked at that airport bid project for this, one of this, and I noticed like the insurance requirements and the requirements that, I couldn't bid the project. You know, I'm a smaller company and, basically I feel like you're limiting a lot of the installers that are in Austin with these big projects. And I think there's a way, I think you should figure out a way, if possible, maybe to build a pre-infrastructure for a large scale project and then allow the installers to go out and sell maybe space on that large scale project that they can install too, you know? So you have many different types of panels you could utilize and test. You could test all kinds of different panels and equipment on those installs, or set certain, you know, try different things.
That would be a different program. We need
Yeah.
to stay focused on the standard offer that we're talking about.
I hear you, man. Sorry to throw that out there.
Thanks.
Seeing that the 20% there that you're referencing would apply to all of the projects feeding into the community solar program, and therefore maybe Austin Energy could kind of account for that percentage.
That's what I'm suggesting. I don't know if that works. But that's at a high level. Yes, that's what I'm proposing. Because one of the targets of that, and one of our targets overall, is to try to provide that 20% bill savings to low income customers. And it's hard to do that when our portfolio costs are so high. You know, if we do that with a high portfolio cost, then we're basically just passing money through the CBC as a handout to low income customers, because it's not pushing any projects along at that point. So I think what we want to be able to do and say is that we've developed a program that leverages I'll say economies of scale, but let's just say, instead of that, let's just say low cost pricing of solar, or so that we're leveraging that to be able to provide benefits to low income customers. Because if we're not leveraging that, then where do the benefits come from? They just come directly from other customers and not really through the program design.
My assumption would be on the community solar, since you've laid the program out to be 50% LMI, 50% market rate, that most would anticipate that they could get that price to give you a lower price or whatever your price you're hitting. And without that, you're only going to count on 30%, right? So if Austin Energy could get some sort of clarification about their program qualifying for that 20%, maybe have a megawatt limit, I don't know, that would be helpful, I think, for your people responding to the standard offer. Do you have any idea of a program megawatt size or a program minimum size for any installation?
Well, there again, so yeah, we know that we want to target for the first tranche. We want to target somewhere between 5 and 10 megawatts. But we would, depending on the price that we can go at, we could go well beyond that. If we can get to the right price, we can scale this. And so that's part of the equation, right? As long as the scales stay balanced, we can continue to grow this program. But if they get off balance, then we start to cost shift to non-participants in the program, and that's not going to be palatable.
You see do you have in this vision, do you see low income people being able to form a neighborhood co-op? And then neighborhood co-op somehow becomes a way for you to serve low income people in a larger scale, but they have more ownership in, they have more participation
Bargaining
in the,
power.
yeah,
and
yeah, in the whole
whatnot.
process.
Yeah, I think we're interested to look at all kinds of models. But again, keeping that cost part in mind. And I'm not here to talk about it today, but we're looking towards a new model and leveraging EPA grant money, if we can get it, to really penetrate low income residential market. So that's going to be another stakeholder meeting, but that is on the horizon and something that we're working really hard on right now. So, okay, I see where you're coming from with the IRA part, especially the ones that really don't require the utility to do that. And so we'll take that back to the drawing board. And do you have any other input? It looked like you were going to say something else, Kaiva. But
Clarify what we're, you know me, I like clarity. Even if we disagree, I like clarity. And I'm not sure that we do disagree. So if you say started with the full value of solar rate and then knocked off 20% because Austin Energy has gotten the entire program qualified for that 20%. I did the math and that's 7.92 cents per kilowatt hour. Just like whether or not that is what it is, like, is that the like formula that
that's the
looking at?
rationale. Yes, that's what
I think, like, to me, that feels more palatable than the pieces that are more targeted to low income customers at the installation site, because I feel like that doesn't draw away from the incentive to install at those properties.
I understand. I and agree. Yeah. Okay. Now can you get me back? Yeah. Are we on time? Is it 6:30? Okay. Well, I think we can finish the rest of our questions through the survey that we want to put out. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close and just say thank you for everyone and your participation and feedback. So for next steps, real quick, discussion with distribution we're going to have a discussion with distribution regarding different interconnection policies, hosting capacity, technology, and non-wires alternatives. Working with AE Legal on some of these different types of agreements that we're putting together. Continued discussions regarding price strategy and the megawatt goals. And we should have something a lot more solid at the next stakeholder meeting to talk about there. And we'll send out a survey to capture some of the stuff that was discussed here. And so now that you have a feel for what we're, the questions that we're trying to answer, we'll ask, or for the topic, I should say, we'll ask more specific questions about what we're trying to answer. And then we'll set up another stakeholder meeting for the not too distant future. That's a good question. I guess we didn't have a sign in for the people inside the room. Yeah, we've got everybody online, but let's see if we can't throw together a sign in sheet real quick. or maybe we can just capture that as you guys leave. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, just curious, how do we get on the stakeholder list? Is there a place to sign up? Or
Yeah,
is it-
if we're gonna take names as you guys leave today, and then that'll and get your contact information, and then you'll be on the stakeholder list moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll send out this PowerPoint and the IRA one that we presented tonight. And just thank you all for your participation and feedback. We appreciate you, and we're excited about this program and the development of it as well. We'll get there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice night.